Hello everybody, how you doing? I just wanted to do a quick video of something that kind of inspired me this morning, and I want to do it by starting by showing you this instrument right here. Okay, this is my Fender Stratocaster. This is by far my favorite. I mean, I haven't had a lot of guitars, but it's by far my favorite guitar because it's so versatile and it can do pretty much anything. But I want to start this by asking you this simple question: what is the potential of this instrument? What is the potential of this instrument? Well, that question, the answer to that question, is totally determined by whose hands this instrument is in. Are you with me? The potential of this instrument is totally determined by the hands that are playing this instrument. Now, if you put this in my hands, sorry, my strings are old and they're out of tune. Yeah, I can play some stuff. I'm an okay guitar player. I don't have the chops that I used to have, but I'm actually kind of working on that. So, but if you take this instrument and you give this instrument to a guy like Phil Keaggy, or somebody like Stevie Vai or Eddie Van Halen, for those of you who don't know, they're guitar players, famous guitar players. They determine the potential of what can come out of this instrument. And which leads me to what I want to share with you. So, up on the screen behind me, I know you probably can't see it very well. I'm still trying to figure out a way I can present these in my videos a little better, so you can see them. But so in my Bible study program, every day I get a little picture, and this was my scripture for today. And so basically it's a scripture, but then they do a little picture, to kind of depict what the scripture is talking about. And this one is one I've heard long time, heard it really all my life, and most of you probably will have heard it. Some of you, maybe this will be new to you. But it's 1 Samuel 16:7, and I'm going to read it here in just a second, but I want to kind of give you the background of this, because the first two kings of Israel, the first one was a guy named Saul, the second one was a guy named David. And they both had very different endings to their life and very different impact with their life. And I have come to recognize that human potential, when it comes to good, human potential is completely rooted in our Creator. Completely rooted. When it comes to human potential for evil, that's a totally different story. The farther we get away from God, people can do incredible evil, but people can also do incredible good. But part of that potential, I mean, the good and evil really is a very important component. And that always boils down to someone's heart, what's in their heart. So let me give you the quick background of this story, and I promise this video is going to be 10 minutes or less. At some point, I probably will do a video blog about David, because honestly, studying David's life, I've been doing that for many years now, has really changed my perspective on a lot of things, because he was the greatest king of Israel by far. And second only to Jesus, David was the most mentioned guy in the Bible. As a matter of fact, depending on how you count his mention in the Bible, he's actually mentioned more than Jesus. And I know that you may go, oh, what are you saying? Oh, I'm just saying David's in the Bible more than any other human being. Now, Jesus is more important, no question about it. And David knew that. Okay, but let me stay on track here. So this verse, the setting of this verse was God had basically gotten fed up with Saul. It even says in Scripture that God had changed Saul's heart. Even though Saul was chosen, basically God gave the people what they wanted. They wanted a king. They wanted to be like other nations. They wanted a king. We want a king like the other nations have a king. So God said, okay, I'll give you one, but he's ultimately not going to be a good one, and he's really going to enslave you and all the things that it mentions about Saul. But while all that was happening, and this really struck me this morning, is God introduces David in Scripture. God is the one who said, and it's in this context, okay, or in this story, not this verse, but it's in, God is the one who says, listen, I've been searching for a man. I've found myself a man, and that man was David, okay? But here's 1 Samuel 16:7. It says, but the Lord said to Samuel, don't look on his appearance or the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. Now, this context is talking about David's brothers. So God sent Samuel to Jesse, who was David's father. Jesse brings all of his sons in there, except David. Jesse had 8 sons. He brings 7 sons. He doesn't even bring David to the sacrifice. Think about that. Okay. This is God talking to the prophet Samuel, because Samuel saw the first of the brothers, and it doesn't give us a lot of details, but he was probably tall, dark, and handsome, and and this is what God said to Samuel, the prophet, and Samuel was a great prophet, He said, for the Lord sees not as man does. The Lord sees not as man does. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. The Lord looks at the heart. And so God had looked and had given Saul opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to basically obey. I mean, basically to love God. Do what I'm telling you, Saul. I mean, it's not rocket science, okay? And Saul basically by his actions said no, 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 no. And Saul was worried about everything else, okay? But God found a man who ultimately, if there was a caption that you would put on the life of David, it would be, David was a man after God's own heart. He was a man after God's own heart. And so listen, the same way, this guitar, the potential of what can come out of this guitar is totally based on whose hands that it's in. And so I encourage you, wherever you're at and whatever you're dealing with, listen, God can change us. We tend to shrink back from God when we find stuffs in our life or when we're failing. If there's one thing that has amazed me over the last 20 years of my life, I mean, it really would have started more than 20 years ago. It would be the lengths that God has gone to try and get a hold of my heart. The lengths that God has gone to get me to entrust my heart to Him it's the reason why I follow Him and I love Him, because there's nobody like Him. And so listen, wherever you're at, God sees your heart. And listen, if that makes you want to hide, I encourage you, don't do that. Run to Him. God knows what's in us. He can change us. He can transform us. God sees in us what's in us. He looks at the heart. And He looks at that heart knowing the potential of what He can do knowing the potential of what He can do if we will put it in His hands. So that's my challenge to you. That's my inspiration for the day. Put it in His hands, man. Don't run from Him. He loves you. He knows. Put it in His hands, whatever's going on. God doesn't look on the outside. He looks at our heart, and He knows that He can change our hearts. So there you have it. That's it. There you go. It was a little over 10 minutes, but I won't tell if you don't. So, all right. God bless. Have a great day. I hope that was encouraging or inspiring to you. To make me whole, you're calling me